The sky burned as the human ship tore through Neloria's twin suns, a trail of fire marking its doom. The screech of metal carried across the crystalline beaches, a sound so alien it made Kara's skin prickle. Above her, flocks of winged drakes scattered into the amber sky, their cries mingling with the roar of something dying. Kara froze mid-motion, her hands still dripping with the sweet juices of sea fruits she had been gathering. The basket at her feet tilted, spilling purple orbs across the glassy sands. She stared at the sky, heart pounding, as the fiery streak plummeted toward the horizon and vanished beyond a ridge of coral-like spires. Then came the crash, a deep, gut-rattling thud that sent tremors through the ground. A plume of smoke spiraled upward like a black wound in the serene expanse of turquoise waters. By the eternal tides, she whispered, her violet lips parting in awe and dread. Her tribe had spoken of such things, ships of metal and fire that carried beings from distant stars, but she had never seen one with her own eyes. Until now, instinct shoved fear aside. Kara kicked off her sandals and ran, her green garments fluttering against her slender frame. The sea breeze tangled her silver hair as her bare feet pounded the beach, scattering sand like powdered glass. The scent of smoke thickened, mingling with the salt-laden air. When she crested the final dune, the wreckage came into view and stole her breath. The vessel lay half-submerged in the shallows, its sleek hull torn open like a fruit rind. Sparks hissed where seawater met ruptured machinery. Strange glyphs, harsh and angular, crawled across its scorched surface. Amid the twisted metal, something moved, or rather, someone. He was sprawled across a jutting fragment of hull, his body limp, his skin a pale tan she had never seen before. His clothing strange, tight, and torn clung to muscles that spoke of strength even in stillness. Blood trickled from a gash on his forehead, dark against his skin. His chest rose and fell in shallow, ragged gasps. A human. The stories had not prepared her for this. Kara waded into the water without hesitation, the cold biting against her legs. She slid her arms beneath his and heaved, her species-hidden strength turning what should have been an impossible task into one of sheer will. Water streamed from his clothing as she dragged him onto the sand, her own breath coming hard. Kneeling beside him, she pressed her ear to his chest. A heartbeat fast but strong. Relief softened the tight knot in her chest. She checked the obvious injuries first, the gash on his head, the ugly angle of his right leg. She reached for her pouch, pulling out a clay jar of healing salve, its scent sharp with crushed roots and sea herbs. Carefully, she smeared it along the torn flesh of his forehead, then moved to inspect his leg. That was when she saw it, a bulge in his lower body, beneath the shredded fabric of his uniform. At first glance, she thought it was a hidden weapon, but then she noticed the way it shifted slightly when he breathed. Swelling, internal damage, perhaps, bleeding inside? Her healer's training screamed urgency. This must be serious, she murmured, her brows knitting. Privacy was nothing when life hung in balance. With gentle fingers, she loosened the torn fabric and applied a cooling layer of salve. Her touch clinical, at least at first, but the swelling didn't shrink. It grew down her violet brows furrowed in confusion. She pressed more firmly, massaging, the ointment in small, practiced circles. Heat radiated from the spot, alarming her. Why is it worsening? She whispered, rubbing harder now, determined to disperse the imagined clot dot, and the human's eyes flew open, startling blue, blazing against the tan of his face. A strangled sound escaped him, half yelp, half words. He jerked upright, scrambling backward on his elbows, despite the pain lancing through his body. Stop! His voice was hoarse, panicked. What are you doing? We don't even know each other. Kara froze, hands hovering mid-her, her cheeks flushing a deep shade of plum. I was helping. You were injured, and this swelling. That's not an injury. He cut in, wincing as his twisted leg protested. That's normal male. Human anatomy under certain circumstances. Kara blinked. The words fell like stones into a silent pool, rippling through her understanding. Slowly, horrified realization dawned. Oh my, she breathed, drawing her hands back as if burned. I didn't. We don't have. I mean, our males don't. Awkward silence stretched between them, broken only by the gentle lap of waves against the shore and the distant calls of seabirds. The human cleared his throat, his expression a tortured mix of pain and mortification. I'm Commander Drake Harlow, he managed, forcing a breath. Earth Alliance. And you? Kara swallowed hard, her voice barely above the whisper of the tide. Kara Kamari of the coastal tribe. And as the smoke curled skyward from the broken ship behind them, a strange spark flickered between alien violet and human blue one, born from misunderstanding, yet destined to ignite something far greater than either could imagine. Asterisk. The silence stretched long enough for Kara to feel every thud of her heart. She wanted to sink into the sand and let the tide carry her away. No healer's manual had prepared her for this, no whispered stories. Among her people, no ancient teachings. They spoke of broken bones, torn flesh, fevers that stole life. Not. This. Drake broke the quiet first, wincing as he shifted his weight. Listen, he said through clenched teeth. I appreciate the help, really. But maybe. Don't touch. That again. Kara's violet cheeks burned hotter. I understand, she murmured, her eyes darting to his face, then away again. Her people prized composure, but the words she had just spoken still burned in her ears. Our males don't. She wanted to bite her tongue off. Drake noticed her flustered expression and, despite his pain, a faint chuckle escaped him. Well, he rasped, it's certainly the most unique first contact I've ever had. She blinked, startled, then saw the small, lopsided smile tugging at his lips. Something in her eased a thread of tension loosening. But the reprieve was short-lived. His face tightened suddenly, breath hissing through his teeth as he clutched his side. Kara's instincts roared back to life. She leaned forward, her healer's eyes sweeping over him with fresh urgency. His leg was still twisted unnaturally, but now she saw the dark bloom of bruising along his ribcage, spreading like storm clouds beneath his skin. You're worse. Then you let on, she said, her voice sharp with worry. You've lost too much blood. She pressed a cool palm to his forehead. Heat radiated from him like a forge. You're burning up. Military training, he managed with a weak grin. Never admit how bad it is. But even as he tried to joke, his strength faltered. His shoulders sagged, and when he spoke again, the words came ragged, broken. I think something inside's bleeding. Alarm knifed through her. The village was hours away. He would never survive the trek like this. Her gaze swept the jungle beyond the beach. Dense, shimmering foliage whispered secrets under twin suns. There was only one answer. There's a healing grove near here, she said quickly, standing with fluid grace. Plants strong enough to fight fever and stop bleeding. I'll gather what I need. No. His hand shot out, catching hers with surprising strength for a dying man. His fingers were rough, warm, a jarring contrast to the cool silk of her own skin. Don't leave me, he murmured, his eyes half-lidded, their blue dulled by pain. Kara knelt again, her other hand covering his in a promise she didn't fully understand. I won't be far, she said softly. Try to stay awake, for me. His lips curved faintly. Pretty name, he mumbled, his voice a ghost of sound. Pretty, everything. Then his eyes slid shut. Something twisted inside her chest, a pull deeper than duty. She squeezed his hand once more, then slipped into the jungle, moving like shadow and wind. Her fingers knew which vines to strip, which fruits to crush, which blossoms held the silver sap of life. Within minutes, her pouch brimmed with glowing blue leaves, orange pods, and delicate flowers that pulsed as if alive. When she returned, Drake had slumped further down, his skin pale and clammy. She dropped to her knees beside him, her heart pounding like a war drum. "Stay with me," she whispered, crushing the plants between two stones until their luminous juices ran. She mixed them with water from her flask, creating a thick, bitter draught. Lifting his head gently, she pressed the mixture to his lips. He swallowed reflexively, grimacing. "Tastes like engine coolant," he muttered weakly. "I'll take your word for it," she replied, a faint smile ghosting her lips despite the fear gnawing her gut. "Now drink the rest." He obeyed, then sagged against her as if every bone in his body had given up. She caught him, her arms strong despite her slender frame. For the first time since the crash, Kara allowed herself to breathe. The jungle whispered around them, alive with alien music as twin suns bled orange light across the horizon. She brushed a damp strand of silver hair from her face and looked down at the human she had pulled from death's grasp. And as she stared at him, this fragile, stubborn, fascinating creature, a truth settled deep inside her, whatever strange. Forces had brought him crashing into her world. They would not let him die. Not while she still drew breath, but above, unseen beyond the atmosphere, shadows moved among the stars' mercenary ships hunting a wounded man. And time, Kara knew, was running out. Asterisk. The council fire burned bright, but shadows of fear danced in every eye. The voices of Neloria's elders rose and fell in harsh tones, echoing beneath the great tree whose trunk glowed with threads of living light. Kara stood on the edge of the gathering, her heart pounding like the surf against the cliffs. She had never faced a circle like this before, not with stakes so high, not with a secret so heavy on her tongue. Behind her, in the healer's hut, the human slept fitfully. Fever still clung to him, but the worst had passed thanks to her medicines. Kara had wiped the sweat from his brow, adjusted the woven leaves shading his body, and prayed silently that the elders would not demand his death, for that too was a possibility. "Speak, Kara Kamari," Chief Taran commanded. His voice was deep, steady as stone, yet the weight behind it pressed hard against her bones. Her father's eyes that had taught her gentleness and strength, now bore into her like twin sons. "You were seen returning with an off-worlder. Why?" She stepped forward. Chin high though, her pulse thundered. "He crashed on the coast. His ship was torn apart by fire. He was dying." Murmurs rippled through the circle. Merak, the rival counselor draped in scarlet shells, rose to his full height. His elaborate headdress swayed like the jaws of a predator as he sneered. "And you brought him here, to our village? Against every law, every tradition that keeps us safe?" Kara swallowed the retort, burning her tongue. "Instead," she said evenly, "if you saw what I saw, blood spilling into the sand, a life fading, you would have done the same." Merrick's eyes gleamed with something darker than disapproval. "Compassion is not the question. Survival is. These humans, these creatures of steel and fire carry war in their bones. Letting one live invites doom." Before Kara could answer, the ground between them shimmered, and a column of light erupted from a small emitter one of the scouts had placed in the center of the council ring. The hologram that formed within the glow froze the air in Kara's lungs. A reptilian face leered from the projection, its crimson scales glinting with metallic implants. One cybernetic eye spun and clicked, focusing with predatory precision. The mouth stretched into something like a smile, though it bared more teeth than comfort allowed. Double quotes. Ah, the voice hissed, oily and cold. So this is Neloria. Rippled among the gathered Nyorians. Merrick stepped back involuntarily, and even Chief Toron's jaw tightened. I am Vex. The creature purred, every syllable curling like smoke. Leader of the cartel, you have no doubt heard whispered about in your quaint little corners of the galaxy. Kara's fingers curled into fists at her sides. She had heard the name every child had, though only in warnings told by firelight. Smugglers, slavers, murderers who carved empires in blood. What do you want? Toran's voice was iron. Simple, Vex said, his eye whirring. The human you have taken in, yes, we know of him. He carries something valuable, something that belongs to us. Kara's breath hitched. She knew what Drake had murmured, before slipping into fevered dreams the package. Something precious enough to risk death for. He stole from us, Vex continued, his tone soft as silk over steel. Return him to the coordinates I will transmit within 12 of your hours, or watch Neloria drown in its own screams. The council erupted in shouts, some in fear, others in fury. Vex waited, savoring the chaos, before delivering the final blade. Oh, he added lightly, and so there is no doubt of my sincerity. The projection flickered, revealing an image that froze every voice. A neighboring world, lush and green, much like their own, reduced to charred wasteland. This is what happens to those who deny me. I trust you will make the enlightened choice. The hologram blinked out, leaving silence thick as blood. Merak was first to speak, spitting the words like venom. Do you see now? This human brings death to our shores. Give him to the cartel and let them leave. No, Kara said, the word tearing free before she could stop it. Every head swung toward her. Her heart hammered, but her voice did not falter. If Vex has what he claims, if this plague they whisper about is true, surrendering him dooms not just us, but countless worlds. You speak madness, Merrick snarled. Better their doom than ours. Kara turned to her father, desperation burning in her chest. He carries hope, father. He told me the truth before the fever took him, the Nexus plague, the sickness that kills entire systems. He holds the key to its cure. The murmurs surged again, but this time with fear, threaded by something else. Wonder. Chief Toran's gaze lingered on his daughter for a long, heavy moment. Then he spoke, his voice quiet, but carrying like thunder. You will bring this human before the council. Now. Kara bowed her head, hiding the storm in her eyes. She had saved Drake once on the crystal shore. Now, to save him again, she would have to defy not just Merrick, not just Vex, but the chains of tradition itself. And somewhere beyond the clouds, the cartel ships were already moving, their shadows sliding like knives across the stars. Asterisk steam curled like silver ribbons from the surface of the sacred pools, rising into the humid dusk air. The light of Neloria's twin suns bled through the jungle canopy in fractured shards, scattering across iridescent leaves and sending trembling reflections over the water. Kara stood at the edge of the pool, her pulse pounding so loudly she could hear it in her ears. The glowing waters shimmered as if alive, responding to her presence or perhaps to the gravity of what she was about to do. Behind her, Drake leaned against a moss-covered pillar, his skin pale, but his eyes sharp now. That the fever had broken. He watched her with curiosity and something else, an awareness that neither of them could put into words yet. This is where you'll find your luminous heart? He asked, voice rough but steady. Kara nodded slowly, fingers tightening around the strap of her satchel. It's not just a plant. It's the essence of our people, the symbol of life itself. The elders guard it because it grows only here, beneath the pools. It is the most sacred thing on Neloria. She drew in a shaky breath, the weight of her next words nearly crushing her. And it only reveals itself to those who are joined. Drake frowned, clearly parsing her meaning. Joined? Kara turned to face him fully, her silver hair catching the waning light like molten metal. A bond, she said quietly, her voice low as if speaking it too loudly would summon the wrath of every ancestor. Between two souls, physical, spiritual. Our people believe that when two beings share life in the purest sense, the pools awaken and the luminous heart blooms. For a long moment, silence stretched between them, broken only by the soft hiss of steam and the call of distant night birds. Drake's jaw tightened, his expression unreadable. "Kara," he said finally, his voice gentler than she expected. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" Her throat felt dry. If we can't make that connection, the plant won't appear. And without it, the cure will fail. Drake exhaled slowly, dragging a hand through his damp hair. "You realize this sounds like something out of a bad human romance drama, right?" Despite the knot of fear in her chest, a tiny laugh broke from Kara's lips, soft, fragile, but real. "Perhaps your stories and ours are not so different." Then the laughter faded, and what remained was heat raw and danger sparking between their locked gazes. Kara stepped closer, her heart a storm inside her ribs. She could feel his warmth, the pulse of life under his skin, so alien and yet so achingly familiar in its rhythm. "I would never ask you to compromise who you are," Drake said, his voice low, almost hoarse. "Not for me, not for this." Kara shook her head, her violet eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "You didn't ask," she whispered. "I chose. From the moment I pulled you from the sea, I knew." She faltered, then finished with a whisper that tasted like truth. "I would do anything to keep you alive." For a breathless second, neither moved. Then Drake reached for her, his hand trembling only slightly as his fingers brushed her cheek. The contact jolted something deep inside them both. The tension snapped, and in its place surged a pull older than words, older than stars themselves. Their lips met not in the awkwardness of their first misunderstanding, but in a slow, deliberate melding that deepened with every heartbeat. Kara's skin, violet and warm, pressed against his. Drake's hands found her waist, feeling the silken texture of her garments as they gave way beneath his touch. The sacred pool steamed higher as they entered its depths, water glowing brighter with each shiver of connection. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. Then, beneath the surface, movement stirred delicate leaves unfurling in waves of bioluminescent blue and gold. Dozens of luminous hearts rose like stars from the depths, pulsing in rhythm with the joined bodies in the water. The pool erupted in light so brilliant it spilled into the trees, casting radiant shadows that danced like spirits. Kara broke the kiss, breathless, her forehead pressed to his. "It's happening," she whispered in awe, watching the glowing. Leaves gather around them. The pool accepts us. Drake followed her gaze, wonder flickering in his eyes. "Guess that means we passed the test," he murmured, his lips brushing her temple. But even as the plants drifted toward them, glowing like fragments of a new dawn, the jungle beyond the pools trembled with distant sound alien engines cutting. Through the night, Kara stiffened. "The cartel," she breathed. Asterisk. Drake's jaw set like iron. "Then we work fast. We've got a cure to make, and a war coming straight for us." The bioluminescent glow rippled across their skin like living fire as they gathered the sacred plants side by side. In that moment, they weren't just two beings from different worlds. They were something new, something forged in need and tempered in trust. Neither of them knew yet just how far that bond would take them, or what it would cost. Asterisk, the healer's hut pulsed with golden light, the glow bleeding through the gaps in its woven walls and spilling across the jungle floor. Kara's hands moved with swift precision, grinding luminous leaves into a shimmering paste while Drake held the container steady. Inside, the genetic material he had risked everything to protect swirled like liquid fire, reacting to the extracts. From Naloria's most sacred plant, sweat traced lines down Drake's temples as he worked, the ache in his ribs dulled by determination and something stranger, a low, thrumming energy humming beneath his skin. The bioluminescent glow that had ignited during the ritual still clung faintly to him, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. He caught Kara's reflection in the glassy surface of the mixture, her violet skin alive with light, her silver hair, damp and tangled from the pools. She was breathtaking, and she was terrified, but her hands never faltered. Almost there, she whispered, watching the golden hue deepen until it gleamed like a newborn star. Another minute, and the cure will stabilize. A sound shattered the fragile quiet. The door slammed open, crashing against the wall. Dust cascaded from the beams as a figure filled the doorway, a towering silhouette backlit by the glow of burning torches outside. Vex. He ducked beneath the frame, his crimson-scaled bulk dominating the room. Cybernetic implants whirred as he stepped inside, his lipless mouth curling into something that might have been a smile if it weren't so full of teeth. 2 mercenaries followed, their sleek black armor marked with the cartel's crimson sigil, weapons trained on Drake and Kara. "Well," Vex rasped, his voice smooth as oiled metal, "I must commend you both. Enhancing my stolen merchandise with local flavor? Ingenious. My scientists will be delighted." Drake shifted, planting himself between Kara and the cartel leader, though every instinct screamed at the odds. His blaster lay too far away to matter. "You're early," he said evenly, masking the tension coiled in his chest. "Your ultimatum wasn't dramatic enough for you?" Vex's cybernetic eye whirred, focusing on the radiant vial in Kara's grip. "Dramatics waste time. And time, Commander, is something I now possess in tragically short supply." He coughed violently, unexpectedly greenish fluid splattering across the woven floor. When he straightened, his scales looked duller, flaking at the edges. "A side effect," he admitted with a hiss. "Handling the weaponized strain. I need that cure." Kara's fingers clenched around the container. "It isn't ready," she said, her voice steady even as her heart slammed against her ribs. "One wrong step and it fails." "Then finish it," Vex growled, stepping closer. The mercenaries adjusted their grips on plasma rifles, the muzzles glowing a deadly blue. Now, Drake's mind spun. The cure was close seconds away. Maybe, but there was no way Vex would let them complete it uninterrupted. And then there was Merak. The thought of him hit like a blade in the dark dot, as if summoned. Another shadow slid through the door. Merak. His ornate headdress now seemed like a crown of betrayal as he stepped into the light. His voice was bitter, triumphant. "I warned. You," he sneered at Kara. "This is what your defiance brings. Desecrating our traditions, endangering our tribe for him." His gaze flicked to Drake with venomous heat. Kara's nails bit into her palms. "You don't understand," she snapped. "This isn't just about him. It's about every world, every life the plague will touch." "Lies," Merak spat. "And even if it were true, Naloria owes nothing to the stars." "Enough," Vex hissed, his tail lashing against the floor. "Finish the synthesis, or your tribe dies before dawn." The hut seemed to shrink under the weight of his words. Outside, Kara could hear shouting the panicked cries of villagers being herded, the hiss of plasma fire. Smoke slithered through the air, thick and bitter. Drake leaned close, his voice a whisper against her ear. "We need a distraction." His breath was warm, his tone hard with resolve. "Buy me 30 seconds. She didn't ask how. She didn't need to. Their eyes met, and the unspoken promise passed like lightning between them. Kara straightened, turning to Vex with deliberate calm. "You want this cure?" she said, lifting the golden vial so it caught the light like a promise. "Then here. Emmy, if you kill us now, it dies with us. If you fire that weapon, every hope you have of survival burns to ash." Vex froze, his cybernetic eye whirring, analyzing her tone, her stance. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to that fragile thread of negotiation, until Drake moved. He didn't go for the blaster. He went for the glowing powder bowl on the healer's bench, the powdered heart leaf Kara had used to mix the cure. With a soldier's precision, he flung it into the air, a shimmering cloud that exploded into golden dust. The mercenaries coughed violently as the sedative pollen took hold, their weapons clattering to the floor. Vex roared, lurching forward, but Drake was faster now, impossibly fast. The hum under his skin surged into raw power, his muscles rippling with strength no human had ever possessed before. He slammed into Vex, with a force that drove the cartel leader backward through the doorway and into the night dot outside. Chaos erupted. Villagers sprang from the shadows, wielding plant-based weapons pods that burst into blinding light, vines that lashed like living whips. Mercenaries staggered, disoriented, as Neloria fought back with the jungle itself. Kara clutched the stabilized vial to her chest, the golden liquid throbbing like a captured sun. She could feel it, the bond they had forged in the sacred pools, resonating through the cure, through them. It wasn't just medicine, no. It was something new, something powerful. She ran to the doorway, her eyes locking on Drake as he squared. Off against Vex, beneath the burning glow of twin moons. Human strength clashed with reptilian fury. Plasma fire lanced through the dark, and the air shimmered with bioluminescent dust. For the first time since the crash, Kara understood the truth. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was war. And the outcome would decide the fate of more than Neloria. It would decide the future of countless stars. Asterisk, the night roared with chaos. Plasma fire streaked across the clearing, lighting up Neloria's lush jungle in deadly flashes. The sacred vines writhed like living serpents, ensnaring mercenaries as villagers fought with a ferocity born of desperation. Smoke and glowing spores curled in the air, turning the battlefield into a surreal, shimmering storm. Drake moved like a man possessed. Energy thrummed in his blood, each heartbeat igniting power that hadn't existed before the pools. His skin glowed faintly, veins threaded with bioluminescent light. He ducked under a plasma bolt, rolled, and came up hard, slamming into a mercenary with bone-breaking force. The soldier crumpled, unconscious before he hit the ground. Across the clearing, Kara darted between shadows, her movements as fluid as the tide. She wasn't just a healer tonight, she was Neloria's fury, striking with swift, precise blows. Her hands scattered powder from luminous heart leaves into the faces of two charging mercs, dropping them into a dreamless stupor. But her eyes never left Drake. She could feel their connection thrumming like a live wire, bridging the space between them, even in the chaos. Then Vex came for him. Asterisk, the cartel leader surged from the smoke like a nightmare in crimson scales, towering over Drake with cybernetic limbs gleaming and teeth bared. His implants sparked as he lunged, claws raking the air with a metallic screech. Drake barely brought his arm up in time. The impact sent him crashing into a glowing tree trunk, pain detonating through his ribs. He spat blood and grinned anyway. "Look worse," he rasped, eyes locking on the flaking scales along Vex's jaw. The cartel lord was deteriorating fast, his weaponized plague eating him alive. Each breath came out as a guttural hiss. "Give me the cure," Vex growled, his voice fraying like torn metal. "Or I rip it from your bones." "Guess you're out of options," Drake shot back, and then he moved. What followed wasn't human. It was something more. The strength Kara's ritual had gifted him erupted like a tidal wave. Drake sidestepped a killing blow with speed he hadn't possessed. Hours ago, pivoted and slammed his fist into Vex's abdomen. Bone and metal crunched. The reptilian giant reeled, roaring in rage as Drake closed the distance, landing blow after blow until Vex staggered to his knees, clutching his ruined chest. "You could have ruled the galaxy," Vex rasped, his cybernetic eye flickering as sparks spat from its socket. "And instead, you play savior." Drake leaned in close, his bioluminescent veins pulsing like living fire. "No," he said softly. "I play human." Then he drove his blade seized from a fallen mercenary deep into the cartel lord's chest. Vex's roar shattered the night, then died in a choking hiss. His massive body toppled, crushing the jungle floor in a cloud of spores. The ground drank his blood like rain. Asterisk. The battle ended as quickly as it began. The mercenaries, leaderless and sedated, were bound in glowing vines by Nelorian warriors. The jungle exhaled a breath of silence, broken only by the hum of alien insects and the distant whisper of tides. Ran to Drake, her heart hammering against her ribs. His chest heaved with exhaustion, his body slick with sweat and blood, but his smile gods, that infuriating smile, was still there. "You're insane," she whispered, grabbing his face. With trembling hands. "Probably," he murmured, leaning into her touch. But it worked. Behind them, the vial pulsed golden in Kara's satchel, a cure no longer bound by one species' limits. It was something new, something born of two worlds. And when word spread, it would change everything. 3 months later, the stars stretched, like silver rivers beyond the viewport of the Earth Alliance flagship horizon. Drake stood on the observation deck, uniform crisp, though the faint glow beneath his skin still flickered like an ember. The door whispered open behind him. "Commander." "Harlow," came a voice that warmed his blood more than any sun. He turned, and there she was. Kara Kamari, ambassador of Neloria, draped in flowing garments of green and silver, her violet skin luminous under the station lights. Her hair shimmered like molten moonlight. "You clean up well," Drake said, grinning. "For a tribal healer. Turned galactic diplomat. And you," she teased, "for a soldier who can't follow orders." He closed the distance in 2 strides, his voice dropping low. "Still think this is madness?" She touched his arm, fingers tracing the glowing veins like constellations. "If it is," she whispered, "then let the galaxy drown in it." There. Kiss was soft, inevitable, a spark in the dark, flaring bright as the chamber doors slid open behind them. "Ambassador, Commander," Chief Toran rumbled, stepping into the hall. "The council awaits." They broke apart, but their hands stayed linked as they walked into the chamber where 17 species waited to sign the birth of a new alliance, an alliance forged from blood, light, and the most unexpected of bonds. As they passed beneath the vaulted starscape of the grand hall, Drake glanced at Kara and smiled. "You know," he murmured, "this all started because you thought something was broken." Her lips curved, eyes glowing like twin suns. "Maybe it was," she said softly, "until I touched it." And somewhere beyond the glass, in the endless, dark, a future brighter than any star ignited, because one alien girl, one human soldier, and one reckless choice refused to let the galaxy burn. The end.